Now more than ever, we must be vigilant and prepared to resist in no matter how small a way at all times. This catastrophe that is unfolding in front of us in real time is gonna fuck up this country. The only question is, how far are they gonna go? I think they're gonna go as far as we let them. Welcome to another episode of Unbelievable Reality. I'm Roy Arthur. As usual, I want to get started with the book, but first of all, I wanted to let you know, gonna cover a lot of ground today because there's a lot of things that are happening right now. I want to kind of give opinions on a handful, so stick with me as we go through this, and you might be surprised by what you learn, or what you hear, or what you think about what I have to say. So first of all, I wanted to start with today's literary recommendation. This is a book called Blowback by Miles Taylor. And it's a warning to save democracy from the next Trump. The irony of this is Miles Taylor was anonymous. That's right, he was the leaker in the first Trump administration. Anonymous, that they turned the White House upside down trying to find, couldn't do it, and then finally he came out and admitted that it was him. Immediately Trump said that he should be tried for treason and executed. Poor Mr. Taylor was on the run. Actually, the Secret Service offered to provide him a detail because they thought he was in imminent danger, which he was. He basically hid out for about a month. The wild thing about this is he calls everything that would happen with the next, quote, Trump, but he could never have foreseen that it would actually be Trump Part 2. And I find that I find the whole book really, really intriguing. Some insights on the previous administration and pretty much predictions on the current administration and where it's going. So, Miles Taylor, Blowback, that's today's literary read. So, gosh, where to start, man? Where to start? As you can see, as usual, I've got a whole pile of notes here in my lap, but let's start with the Senate confirmation of Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. Now, folks, unless you're just a rabid MAGA maniac, which 30% of this country happens to be, anybody that has half a brain knows that this is the worst appointment to the Secretary of Defense position in the history of the United States of America. The absolute worst. The least qualified with the most baggage. I mean, the accusations about, beating his wife, extramarital affairs, having a baby born while he was still married to another woman. Now that's wife number 3. The email his mother sent, basically describing what a horrible human being he is. The alcohol abuse while he was whatever the fuck he was for Fox News. This guy's a national embarrassment. He's a disgrace. Even to be nominated for the position. But here's my take on it. Hegseth was the litmus test. And the litmus test, the Senate, the House Republicans, the Republicans in the Senate failed. This was a test of if any of them, and only 2 of them, showed any moral courage, and they knew they could do it because he was going to get approved anyway. And that was Susan Collins out of Maine, and I believe it was the lady from Murkowski from Alaska. But they knew they could do that because they knew he was going to pass anyway. So those were the dissenters on the Republican right. That was lipstick on the pig, folks. That's all it was lipstick on the pig so they could at least pretend like they did their fucking job. But they didn't. No one that is rational or intelligent or with a lick of experience in business, much less the military, could have passed this guy's nomination without kissing the orange multiple times. That's what this was. It was a litmus test by the Trump administration saying to the Senate, you will do what I tell you to do. And there was no dissent. Pam Bondi, gonna roll right on through. Kristi Noem, yeah, so qualified to be Homeland Security, gonna roll right on through. Lee Zeldin for the EPA. If there was ever a pile of word salad, this guy managed to make a Caesar salad at the hearings that made absolutely no sense. And then he added buttermilk dressing. That's how ignorant this fuck is. Look, all these guys, Vought, Elise Stefanik, however it's pronounced, all of these appointments are unqualified and all of them are going to pass through the Senate confirmation process and be rubber stamped by the Republican-held Senate. I repeat, this is the Republican-held Senate that is passing these confirmations. Keep that in mind as we go down the road. The Hegseth appointment will implode. It's just a matter of when. I give it max 6 months. Anybody in the military that just saw this understands that the Trump administration just said fuck you to our armed services. Our armed forces, all 4 branches. Oh, and while he was at it, he fired the 4-star admiral, the woman that was the head of the Coast Guard. Why? Because she's a woman and apparently a lesbian. That's all it takes. So that's where we're at on confirmations. So the clown train, as I spoke of before, is just filling up. And now the MAGA right is gleeful. They love this. They think this is such a good thing. The destruction of our government as it has worked, this grand experiment, for the last 250 years, ballpark. They're giddy because they're getting some of what they think that they actually want. But in reality, what they are getting is people in charge of the most important divisions of our executive branch who don't give a shit about them in the slightest and have no idea how to run their departments. Department of Education, oh yeah, McMahon. Yes, she of the ex-wrestling world, the creator of the, I don't even know, I'm not into wrestling, I think it's just, wrestling is a perfect pastime for the Trumpians because it's all fake. And they think it's real. Professional wrestling sums up the Trumpians perfectly. If there was a better sport for them, I haven't seen it. Wrestling is perfect for them. MMA, not a chance. They're all pussies and cowards. And that's why they're so freaking afraid of homosexuals, which we're going to get to. But the shit show continues. Now, while all this is going on, Donald with his magic Sharpie, every other president in the history of the United States has had the dignity to use an ink pen, but that's not good enough for the egomaniac, the narcissistic scum. He's scum that somehow has been elected to run our country. The absolute gibbering fool that has been elected to run our country. No, He's not satisfied with an ink pen. He has to use a Sharpie and hold it up to show that he passed 3rd grade cursive. Good for you, Donnie. While he was busy with all these executive orders unleashing ICE on what is planned to be the largest deportation in the history of our country, up to possibly 10 million people. And for you mega morons, when you can't get oranges, when you can't get lettuce, when you can't get tomatoes, when you can't get beef, when your poultry isn't processed, when you can't buy your sausage that you stuff in your mouths because you're pork eaters, when you can't get those things, ask yourself who's going to do the job. Because there's not a long line of white, young men or women dying to go to work in a poultry factory or a slaughterhouse or in a farm field anywhere. None. These folks aren't stealing jobs from Americans. Americans are too fucking lazy to do these jobs. Americans are fucking lazy. They don't do their homework. They're easily biased. They're led around by their noses, by propaganda, and they believe whatever they're told as long as it suits what their neighbor said. Because he's a genius living in the same house with his parents that his grandparents built. Oh, big future there. Anyway, so the mass deportation, when that hits the grocery stores and the prices continue to climb, we'll see what they scream about then. By the way, irony of ironies, here we are 5-6 days into this blissful experience with the Trumpian disaster. Not a whimper about cutting inflation, lowering grocery prices. As a matter of fact, by getting rid of most of our labor force, you just raised grocery prices. Oh, and it appears that we're going to go on with the tariff concept, which was killed in the 1800s because it didn't fucking work then either. And it didn't work for Herbert Hoover when he tried tariffs to slow the Great Depression. Actually, what it did was throw us into the complete throes of the Depression. Look it up. It's there if you Google or Wikipedia. What tariffs are going to do is really quite clear. It's going to increase costs for the everyday American. Period. The companies aren't going to pay the tariffs. They're just going to raise prices for us. And I'm not going to call us, the people of the United States, consumers. We're human beings. We don't get to be labeled by corporations to suit their fucking models. And we should resist that. Every time you hear any report, any comment, anything that says consumer, flip them off and buy some other kind of root beer. By the way, have to admit myself, I am kind of addicted to root beer, and I drink A&W, which really grosses me out because it's Coca-Cola and they are one of the biggest polluters in the fucking world. That's my transgression. While he was at it with these executive orders, and I want to stop right here and make sure that people understand this. Executive orders don't mean that they're actually going to change things. Okay? A lot of our laws that Donald Trump wants to sign executive orders for. That's great. Go ahead, sign them. They're all going straight to lawsuits. He's being sued by every organization out there, as he should rightly be sued, because these are not lawful orders. Period. And if we had balance in our government between the three branches, these orders would not be implemented. But because the mega morons somehow managed, through gerrymandering, to fuck up this election to where we have the holy trinity of shit shows between the presidency, the House, and the Senate. all in line like twisted stars in a bad night sky, this shit's going to be acted on even though it's unlawful. Okay? The moratorium or the illegal executive order to all of the government agencies to immediately suspend all DEI hires. You don't think that's going to be challenged in court as unconstitutional? It is. You can't single people out like that, and how can you prove they were a DEI hire? Is it say on their hire? Is it stamped on there when they were hired, DEI? Or do you just go after anybody that's diverse or is ethnic? Or might be gay? Because, there's another executive order that says that from now on, there's only 2 genders in the United States, male and female, and those genders are determined at conception. This just shows the idiocy of this administration. All you have to do is look this up online if you don't believe me, but all fetuses are female for the first 6 weeks. Period. So I guess that means from conception, if that's when we are gender identified, all of us therefore should have birth certificates saying that we're women. This runs into conflict with the big machismo aspect of the macho Trumpians. Because guys, you're all born girls. Maybe that explains why you're so fucking homophobic and why you have so much fear about transgender people. And transgender people going into women's bathrooms specifically. Now, one of the things that cracks me up about this is, do we ever hear anybody saying anything about a transgender female who's becoming a man going into a men's restroom? Wouldn't that make you a little uncomfortable? I mean, if we apply the same standards? And by the way, if a transgender man is trying to become a woman, what threat does he pose to women? Or are you just jealous because you can't go in the women's bathroom? That seems more appropriate to me, that you want to go in there, you can't. So you're not going to let a transgender person do it? Your rationale on this point is disgusting, stupid, and nonsensical, to put it lightly. But here we are in this administration, going after gays and transgender people as hard as possible. The flaw in all of this is executive order. That means they're open to challenges in the court. That means these executive orders are not going to all happen. It's just smoke and mirrors to throw meat to his ignorant base. So his ignorant base thinks they're getting what they voted for. The problem is, have groceries gone down? All you Trumpian idiots voted and came out and said it was the economy, the best economy in the United States in 8 fucking years. Once again, Google it, Wikipedia it, numbers don't lie. Only idiots lie when they project upon other people their false beliefs and mythologies. Numbers don't lie. If you think that your vote for Donald Trump somehow makes you important, it doesn't. If you think that this election was a mandate, it wasn't. There was just 7 million people who I'd like to talk to directly on another podcast who just didn't show up and vote. Now, why they didn't show up and vote is the miracle question. That's the big fucking question in all of this. Why didn't they show up and vote? I believe personally, without a doubt, they didn't show up and vote Democratic. Why? Because it was a woman of color. Period. It was racism and misogyny, which are the two central themes of this current administration. Definitely destroying women's rights along the way. See, folks, elections have implications. And this election is going to have broad, sweeping implications for this country for a long time to come. What we can hope for, the liberal, progressive, intelligent 65% of America, is that Donald Trump is as inept as he was in his first administration, and so far it's looking pretty good. And all of these guys are just gonna implode. I mean, I don't even need to go into the Hitler salute from Elon Musk. I'm not even gonna. But that ties into pardoning 1,500 insurrectionists. Folks, that just sent a direct message to the white supremacist movement in the United States of America. And we will be seeing more violence against minorities in the immediate future because of this action. This is a green light to the white supremacist movement to go ahead and get rid of them any way you can, and we will ignore it. There's no other fucking way to say this. And the fact that the Senate has spent, the Republican Senate, again, there's that ugly phrase, Republican Senate. The fact that they've spent the last few days trying to say anything that can justify this fucking unbelievable pardon makes me want to puke. And it should make you want to puke too. 272 of these people were convicted of assaulting police officers. And yet, isn't the Republican Party the party of law and order? Isn't the Trumpian administration the one that's going to go hunt out their political enemies in the FBI and the Department of Justice, those that dared to hold the last administration accountable, those that dared to put these 1,500 twats in jail in the first place? The rule of law does not exist in this administration. They ignore it. And the Senate, the Republican Senate, is complicit and helpful in all of this. The stain on them will last forever. They just don't know it yet. I have to admit, the news coming every day is just more and more discouraging. It is. And yet, at the same time, there's glimmers of hope here and there. All of a sudden, when TikTok went down and then came back to life, ta-da! In less than 24 hours, all of a sudden the algorithms on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram have all started acting really weird. And there was a really weird instance on Instagram for a day where if you tried hashtag Harris, hashtag Biden, hashtag Democrat, those sites were unavailable. Those searches were unavailable, deliberately. And then all of a sudden people started to notice and started going, what the fuck is going on? To me, right there. Oh, by the way, within 24 hours, they were all active again. That should tell us all something. By calling that out, that's the first act of resistance. And that shows that people are becoming aware of how much they're being manipulated. And that right there is one of the biggest lessons to learn right now. We are being manipulated through social media and mass media. There is no real news anymore, okay? CNN, MSNBC, Fox, OAnon, every fucking major news outlet except for Politico and The Atlantic and The Guardian. All the other news sources are biased, and it's a fact. Either right or left, they're all pandering to their audience to get eyes. They're not giving us information, they're feeding us pudding in our flavor to keep us hooked. Stop. Unplug from mainstream media. It's dead. What just happened to the Washington Post 3 days ago, where they unequivocally came out and said they were going to support Trump and the MAGA maniacs and the Trumpian maniacs policies, that's it. Washington Post, you're dead. You don't exist. Your tradition, your proud tradition of fair and free journalism is over. The LA Times, it's over. By the way, Jeff Bezos did this to the Washington Post. Why? Why was he in the front line, in front of the cabinet at Trump's inauguration? Why? Why was it a murderer's row? And they are murderers. A murderer's row of social media titans in front of our cabinet, surrounded by sycophants while they listen to Donald Trump babble and babble and babble and say the same fucking shit he said on the campaign trail. That's all fucking shit. Yeah, it's the last few days are an indication of what's to come. But it will get worse. It will. It's going to get much, much worse. By the way, the Equal Employment Act, the Equal Opportunity Employment Act from the 1960s, 67, I believe, when that was passed, to make sure you could not discriminate based on race, creed, color, or religion while hiring for a position. They're trying to, with an executive order, so this isn't going to happen, but he wants to cancel that law. It's a law. And it can only be canceled via the House and the Senate passing a new law. If that happens, folks, we are fully fascist and there's no looking back, and we should all be prepared. There's a lot of really, really heavy stuff going on right now, and I implore you, pay attention, do your research, read, step out of the social media bubble, educate yourself, be informed, don't be biased. If you don't like what you hear here on Unbelievable Reality Podcast, then don't fucking watch. I don't fucking care. These are my opinions based on facts, the best that I can come up with them. But ladies and gentlemen, don't stick your head in the sand. Now more than ever, we must be vigilant and prepared to resist in no matter how small a way at all times. This catastrophe that is unfolding in front of us in real time is gonna fuck up this country. The only question is, how far are they gonna go? I think they're gonna go as far as we let them. Once again, Unbelievable Reality Podcast, I'm Roy Arthur. If you watched to the end, I appreciate your attention span, and I hope you subscribe and share. Bring your friends. Support, because we can use it. I love comments as well, looking for new topics of interest. See you next time.